You and the kids are going to love this place. Lincoln was so happy to be bringing his family to this resort. The Balder Retreat had been popping up on Lincoln's social media for over a year now. He had even taken PTO for a day so he could come and check it out for himself. He knew the rumors of the Echo Forest, but the resort was only about 3 miles in. Lincoln figured they would be safe. The room he booked was the family suite, which had a kitchen, living room, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and almost the entire south wall was glass. They would be able to spend nights watching nature. Lincoln spent the afternoon watching from the living room sofa. He saw some cool stuff, mostly birds and small animals, but he thought the big stuff may come out at night. It was the most beautiful view he had ever viewed. For Meadow, his wife, who despite her name had never been east of the mountains, Lincoln knew she would be in complete awe, and so would his 3 kids. The oldest, Parker, went fishing with Lincoln around 20 times in his 12 years. However, his 9-year-old daughter Nova and his 5-year-old Brody were like their mom. They didn't really care much about nature. Meadow didn't want to go on Halloween. She didn't want the kids to miss trick-or-treating. She agreed after Lincoln showed her the ad for the Halloween event at the resort. There would be a kids' party, as well as trick-or-treating between the 25 cabins. Meadow loved the scenery away from their home as they drove through this canyon. She loved the long-gone first canyon just as much. They passed a town by the name of Torrey that looked to be abandoned for years. She did think she saw a young child in a window, but there couldn't have been a lone child surviving in a ghost town. She was glad that there was a road to the east of the town. She wouldn't have wanted to cruise that place and down Hell's Main Street. Lincoln told her that it only snowed there once in the history of the town. The ride was the most magical for Meadow when they turned off the paved road onto a dirt one. It was like driving through a fantasy forest in late autumn. The trees were still bright with oranges, reds, and yellows. The lightly snow-dusted ground had bright green grass dotted with red, yellow, and purple flowers. Lincoln never saw grass that bright or flowers in full bloom with snow on the ground, but he was no nature expert. The only time he spent days in nature was during the warm months. Lincoln pulled over just outside the view of the resort so he could blindfold the family. He wanted to see all their faces when they saw this place. He could tell that it made them more excited. Now it was like a secret adventure. His family was standing in the lot, blindfolded, and stomachs almost gurgling with anticipation. "All right," Lincoln told his family. "You can take them off." They removed their masks almost in unison. It was close enough. Then all gasped a gasp that Isaac would have been proud of. The retreat looked almost to the point of being considered ancient. Everything looked as beautiful as Lincoln remembered, and he could tell that Meadow was stunned in amazement. She only got to see places like this on TV. The cabin was about the size of a small hotel. That was the only comparison. Meadow had never seen a small hotel, or any hotel for that matter, as beautiful as this place. The dark wood and the large windows gave the place an ominous feel. The front double doors were large, and above it was a triangle window. A monster elk head could be seen through the glass of the triangle. The family stood in stunned silence of the beautiful, horrifying, magnificent retreat. "What do you think, kids?" Lincoln asked. All 3 kids in Meadow heard the excitement hiding behind every word. He sensed their nervousness. "I know it looks scary, but that's just 'cause it's old," he said. "Trust me, you're going to love this place." He ruffled Brody's hair, gave Nova a squeeze, then put his arm around Parker. "Let's go, kids." The family walked in the door. Lincoln held it for everyone like he always did. The lobby was large and lit with several large chandeliers made from deer or elk antlers. Lincoln couldn't tell which. There was a wide assortment of taxidermied animals decorating the lobby. There were badgers, skunks, foxes, squirrels, coyotes, and a massive bear standing in the corner. There was even a fake Bigfoot. Also lighting the room were several rifle lamps. 4 leather chairs surrounded several coffee tables. In the center of each table was a pistol lamp. There were more taxidermied animal heads decorating the walls, some bighorn sheep, a bunch of deer, a few elk, and a very large bison. Also, there were an assortment of fish that joined the animal heads. Lincoln loved this place. "Welcome to the Balder Retreat," a woman's voice said from behind the counter to the right. On the wall above and behind her was a mega-sized moose. The eyes seemed to be looking right into Lincoln's mind. "My name is Sadie. How can I help you folks?" The family walked to the counter with Meadow in the lead and Lincoln pointing out different animals to the kids. The kids seemed a little leery, but enjoying themselves for the most part. "Hi, Sadie," Meadow said as she reached the counter. "I'm Meadow. We have a reservation for the Is it Rizard?" Meadow showed a smiling Sadie her phone. "Ah, yes," Sadie answered. "Don't worry, it's a weird name to look at." Meadow got a genuine good vibe from Sadie. "You must be the Kane family."
"Yes."
Brody said loud, like 5-year-olds are known to do.
"I'm Brody Kane."
The family chuckled, and Sadie smiled wide at the cute young boy. "Well, aren't you just the cutest thing, Brody Kane?" she said, and the young boy blushed. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Realizing he was now the center of attention, Brody got hugely embarrassed. He ducked halfway behind his dad's legs. "Oh no!" Sadie was now embarrassed herself. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." Lincoln and Meadow both took a few minutes to reassure Sadie that she did nothing wrong. Brody even got comfortable enough to give Sadie a hug. That made her feel better. Sadie led the family out of the back door of the lodge and down a narrow path that passed 3 empty cabins. The trail was thick with trees and decorated with skeletons, spiderwebs, jack-o'-lanterns, and an assortment of various Halloween decorations. Meadow said nothing, but Lincoln did hear her gasp when she saw each. "I don't know if it's because I'm excited or what, but each cabin gets more beautiful," Meadow said, and Sadie agreed. Lincoln's heart filled with delight watching his family fall in love with this retreat. Then the biggest and most beautiful cabin yet came into view. Meadow let out a fresh gasp. "Yeah," Sadie said, "we get that a lot. This is our Utah-famous Rizard cabin." It was a single level, but very long, and had more windows than any house Meadow had ever seen. The windows were the exact things that drew Lincoln to this place. He really wanted his wife and 2 younger children to see some wildlife. They took the kids to the zoo, but that's not the same as seeing wild animals that have to fight to live almost every day. Like most families, the kids had too much screen time, and if you were being honest, he, as well as Meadow, also enjoyed too much screen time. Sadie took them in and gave them a short tour. There were only 6 rooms. Both the parents and kids would have their own bedroom, as well as their own bathroom. Then there was a kitchen and a living room. Meadow couldn't remember the last time she saw a 6-room house/living space that had 0 TVs. The walls were covered in plaques and paintings in a similar style as Greek or Roman murals. The only walls that were empty were the glass walls. All of them featured the same man. The plaques named him Rizard, which made sense because they were in his cabin. The kids hung back in their room with their 4 chairs surrounding a child's play table and an assortment of board games. Parker also found several 100-piece puzzles. Lincoln could hear the kids laughing and choosing beds. Brody called the bottom bunk, so Nova would sleep on the top. That meant Parker would get the other bunk bed to himself. "Who's he?" Lincoln was looking at a picture of Rizard on the edge of a beautiful lake of dark blue water, holding a sword and spear. The full moon hung over the forest on the far side of the lake and reflected in the water. In front of him were 2 things coming out of the water. They looked demonic. "That's Rizard," Sadie answered with a kind voice and a genuine smile. She seemed to really enjoy her job, one of the lucky few. That one shows the time he banished 2 demons from the Echo Forest. It begins tragically, like most stories following a hero. There's legend after legend of this guy. You should look him up online. Echo Forest legend tells Rysard is one of the greatest men to have ever wandered this land. They are amazing stories. Lincoln thought they sounded interesting and agreed he would look them up. Lincoln tried to tip Sadie as she exited the room, but she refused. Her pay was more than enough, and even if it wasn't, she got to live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. She left the family to begin to enjoy their vacation. Lincoln followed his wife to the kids' room, where they both watched them lovingly while the kids laughed and played. Lincoln put his arm around his wife and kissed the side of her head. Lincoln wished he could live in this moment for the rest of his life and beyond. Right here was heaven. The wall facing south was all window, broken only by thin support dividers. The forest beyond was thick and probably 20 yards away. The couple left the kids to unpack while they went back to the master bedroom. Meadow didn't get a good look. She was talking to Sadie, like women tend to do. Meadow's mouth dropped when she really looked at the room. The bed was king-sized, which made sense from the little bit she knew about Rysard. The posts were at least 10 feet tall and made of thick tree trunks. The hardwood floor was polished to perfection, making it a beautiful floor. When you added in the glass wall facing south looking into the forest, this place really was heavenly. She could have done without the fish mounted on the wall, but they would not stop her from loving this place. Oh my God, Lincoln. Lincoln could tell that she was nearly breathless. This is the most beautiful place I have ever seen. Like it's not even close. She turned and almost fell into her husband's arms, then kissed him passionately. It was the most passionate kiss they shared for probably years. She pulled away so she could look into his brown eyes with her teary blue ones. Thank you for this. I think we both needed this vacation. You're welcome, baby. Lincoln almost teared up himself. You're right for sure. Our lives definitely needed a reset. The couple was going through a rough patch for about the last year. Nothing that would end them, but they fought more in the last year than their whole marriage previous. Lincoln was feeling like Meadow was nitpicking everything that he did. Meadow felt like Lincoln had become distant and more easily angered. Like so many times, each thought their issue was caused by the issue they had with the other. Lincoln knew he was more easily angered, but it was because Meadow kept nitpicking everything he did. But she was nitpicking because she never knew what was going on because he was so distant. They both knew it would end eventually. Divorce was not even a thought with these two. The rough patch was just dragging on longer than both wanted. Lincoln hoped more than anything this weekend would be just what they needed to end the nonsense and get back to loving every second with each other. Lincoln squeezed her hand, then pulled her close so he could give her a kiss on the forehead. I love you so much, Meadow, Lincoln said as she buried her face in his chest. We're gonna be okay, baby, I promise. Then kissed her on the top of her head. 3 tears that Lincoln would never see leaked from Meadow's eyes and soaked into his shirt. I love you too, Meadow said back, and in that moment neither ever meant it more. Both got butterflies in their stomachs. The rest of the afternoon was lost to the sounds of the happiest family in the world. First the family went to the small park and played an amazing game of tag. Somehow this forest felt magical, like a natural high. After tag, Meadow sat on the park bench under her husband's right arm and watched the kids play on the all-purpose toy. Nova ran across the bouncy bridge being chased by a squealing Brody. Parker was swinging in the background across the monkey bars. Lastly, the kids swang on swings next to one another. Dad went back and forth between 2 swings, pushing Nova, then Parker, while Meadow pushed Brody, who was still squealing. Sadie stood unseen in the shadows next to her boyfriend, standing by her side. The family went back to the cabin and waited for the snowfall to start. Well, the news forecast said snow. The few clouds visible from the clearing did look like snow clouds. The first snow began to fall nearly a full hour later, just as dinner was about to start. Lincoln always loved when snow began to fall. The flakes were hard to see, but glittered like glitter as they fell. Sadie dropped off their dinner and made sure the family was comfortable. The kids watched in wonder as the flakes grew while they shared a pan of the best mac and cheese the kids had ever eaten. That was high praise because those 3 kids loved mac and cheese. Meadow ate smothered chicken with a baked potato covered in butter and sour cream. Lincoln devoured a steak and the side of mashed potatoes and gravy. Both parents agreed with the kids. This was amazing. The kids moved to the couch and the parents to the lounge chairs looking out a wall-sized window. The flakes slowly grew in size and became more dense. The snow on the ground was accumulating quickly. The kids were loving every minute. Not one person in the family missed any of their screens or electronics. The scene looked to be painted by the hand of God. That's when the dimming evening took a beautifully terrifying turn. A massive black wolf stepped out of the tree line, looking majestic. Lincoln had no idea wolves could get as big as this one. It was nearly the size of a bear. The dark eyes pierced into Lincoln's soul. Large flakes fell on his black coat as the wolf approached the glass. The wolf reached the glass. Somehow Meadow could sense the creature's supreme intelligence. It looked at the family, from oldest to youngest, then fixed its gaze on Brody. Drool began to drip from the bottom jaw as it growled low. Tears filled Brody's eyes, but he was too afraid to make a sound. As the wolf looked into Brody's soul, it started licking the glass. Its tongue was enormous, and its teeth were massive. The rest of the family was uncomfortable by the scene, but was still stunned in amazement. The wolf took 3 steps back, then let out a long, beautiful howl. It was loud and majestic. Only moments after the howl echoed away, 5 more, almost as large black wolves entered the clearing. They slowly approached so they could join their pack leader. Usually, the largest was the leader. They all matched with their perfectly shiny black coats. The snow falling and accumulating on the ground, mixed with the beautiful forest as a backdrop, was the most amazing scene Lincoln had ever seen. Then Lincoln really looked at the one on the far left. That one looked wild. The fur was more matted and more gray, as well as some patches of hair were missing. If the wolves were a hockey team, that wolf had to be the enforcer. Without warning, it jumped into the glass with a loud thud. The whole family jumped. They were all becoming more uneasy. The other 4 began to howl, while the wild wolf chirped and barked. Neither the pack leader or the wild wolf's eyes never left Brody. The howls were not quite in sync. Lincoln had never seen anything so amazing, even considering the mild fear. The others continued howling. Brody's heart was nearly pounding out of his chest. Meadow moved to sit next to her baby boy. The pack leader watched her intensely. The wild wolf pawed the glass using alternating paws. The long nails scratched the glass like nails on a chalkboard. Parker and Nova both covered their ears. After a good minute, the wild wolf gave up pawing on the glass and began to lick it. His dark eyes never left Brody. Brody could no longer contain himself. He belted out a loud cry. Then suddenly, everything stopped. The wolf stopped howling, the wild wolf stopped licking, and Brody stopped crying. All 5 wolves looked at Brody like he was their next meal. Meadow even thought she saw the pack leader's lips curl slightly, like it was smiling. The moment seemed to linger for several minutes. Finally, the alpha let out one more long, beautiful howl. It slowly turned and walked back into the forest. His pack followed, except for the wild one. That one held its eyes on Brody for a moment longer, and let out a quick bark before it turned to follow the rest. This has been a preview for One Night Echoes On, featured in Tales from Deranged Minds, Winter's Whispers. Thanks for coming on a ride with Lost Souls. Please come back next week for another drive and another story. And remember, all lost souls are welcome here.